Hey guys, welcome back to SLT Learning, and today we're gonna cover another questions related with Selenium. And let's see what would be the questions over here. A web element ID change on every reload. Yeah, this is one of the, I would just say, is very important questions. If they ask you, okay, can you say, describe one of the challenges that you face in your automation framework creation or while working on the automation? Okay, so at that time is this example is very useful to give them, okay, because this is the initially phase. Even though I was working in one of the project, I faced this challenge where the id, okay, of the element is it's change every load. Okay, whenever you load the page, it will change the id of the element. So at that time, like, to identify and to make the automation script smooth and workable, it's very challenging, and you can consider that is a technical challenge as well. So how you can resolve these things and how you can troubleshoot those things and make it more reliable. So let's see and what's the syntax which we want to use to make those things happen for you. Okay, so in web, when the web element id change on every load, right, it's considered as dynamic element. Okay, so relying on id is not always the good, I will just say is not always a realistic. Okay, you need to make sure you can try to use another locators as well, like a name and other stable locators you can use. So that will make sure like you are not rely too much on ids. Okay, because most of the times it may be like due to security purpose, they do not keep the id on each and every element. Okay, so let's see what you can do. So use more stable attribute as I said. Okay, so instead of id, try to use class name, placeholder name, alien attribute. Then I will just say is the data attribute. This is one of the things that nowadays most of the automation framework you will find this data attribute. Okay, and this is from the designing and the development side itself. They're gonna include one unique data attribute for each and every element, so that can you can easily use in your automation framework. Okay, so try to use more stable attribute, guys. Then use xpath based on the text rather than using the id. Try to go with by text, and this is the syntax. If you are not aware about the xpath and css selector advanced concept, I have already created one video on my youtube channel. You can go and learn about the locators and see the syntax how you can use. But advanced, I would just say is the advanced and dynamic xpath will be help over here by using the different methods. Okay, so use the xpath based on the visible text. Like, this is one of the things that contains, right, and trust me, most of the times this help me to identify such element. Okay, so in these terms you can use contain method and try to identify the attribute at the rate id, and you see login then underscore. So whatever the ids get, whatever the part of that particular id remain constant, you can use that over here, and based on that you can identify the element. So over here, let's suppose the case would be the login would be always remain, then underscore, and then it's some numerical value which keep changing on every load of the page. Okay, so at that time you can use this method contains at the rate id, then comma, and id should contain this value. Okay, it could be anything, you can put numerical value as well, and anything you can put on this contains method. Okay, this is the advanced concept of xpath. Use the relative xpath. Okay, so try to use the, this is called xpath axis. Okay, so do not use the absolute xpath like going from the root. Try to use the relative xpath to reach to that particular web element. And this is the concept. You can also see the xpath axis where you need to go with the following and preceding, sibling and child element and node element. So all those things I have already covered in detail in my locators video. You can just go and watch that video from my youtube channel. That will give you the understanding about how it's work. So over here you see we have used this tags as well, and then I have used following sibling will be input. So if you use your xpath or your locator like this way, if the id is changing for username, it will not affect. It will search for text username and it will search for following sibling input. That means input box, it will search for the input box from the tag and it will enter your value. So this kind of techniques will always help you to identify the dynamic dynamic element. Okay, another things you can go with the css selector based on class hierarchy like this way. Form dot login hyphen form. So form dot, what is the class? Login form. So this is the class, then button, and this is the class button primary. So like that way you can go with the css selector as well. Rather than if you don't know to go with the XPath, you can go with the CSS selected as well, and that will help you to do that particular exercise in your automation framework. Okay. And at the another way, you can use this JavaScript executor as well. Let's suppose your locator is not able to find or not able to hit. Okay, so inject the script if traditional locator do not work. This is one of the way where you will might be find, okay, my locator is correct and it is not dynamic, it is not changing, but why still it is not clicking or not entering the values. So most of the time, because of the that particular page contain the JS script, and you need to overtake that particular JS script using the JavaScript executor. So you can identify your web element like this way: web element, JavaScript drivers, and execute script, return, and over here return document. Over here need to identify this particular your locator. You can put your normal XPath or CSS locator over here. Then you can use this element dot click, element dot send key, element dot anything operations you want to make on element. You can perform like that way. So this is the way you can identify the element, okay, using the JavaScript executor. Remember the syntax, it's pretty much straightforward, but you need to remember. Sometimes in interview they're gonna ask you, okay, how you let's suppose if I am not able to click on element, my locator is correct, what could be the reason? So it may be the JS related things. So you can just say we can use JavaScript executor to execute our script and click on the element or input the values in the element. Okay, guys. Then ask the developer add stable hooks. Okay, this is one of the things that I told you over here, right? This data attribute the same way. Ask the developer or the designer to add each for each and every element. You see button element, submit button. They have added data test ID is equal to submit button. So now when I want to write my automation script, it will be very easy for me to use this locator, right? Because this will remain constant. They have separately added specific for the automation engineer to identify the locator, and this is the one you need to ask the developer or the web designer to include these particular things when they are developing the code. Okay, and it will help you throughout your automation. So those are the different way. If your IDs is dynamic, it keeps changing, you can use different techniques to tackle that down in your automation framework. You can consider this one is your technical challenge. When you are answering your interview, they ask you, can you explain one of the technical challenge? You can also explain this particular part as a technical challenge as well, and I'm pretty much sure this will give you the good I would just say the impression on your interviews. Okay, then there are a couple of things you no need to, I will just say you should not do when you are working with the locators. So what you should not do not use full XPath, like as I told you, right? Do not go with the root and try to avoid the full XPath. Avoid using the dynamic ID. You see element, and if something you find like this way, okay, there are certain numbers after the IDs or certain numbers in locators, try to avoid those things and try to tackle down those things using the contents method or something like that way. There are many way in a XPath and CSS selector. You can refer those concepts and you can just try to tackle this down, but do not use the locators like this way. Okay, guys, always make sure. So yeah, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and keep watching and keep cracking the interviews, guys. Take care.